Welcome to a new series of meetings with Creation and Creationism, hosted by Alpha Omega TV. Our guest today is John Mackay, geologist, International Director of Creation Research Australia. Welcome today, Mr. Mackay.
As we say in Australia, good day Romulus. Good to be here.
Thank you very much, sir. What are we going to discuss today? Maybe shall we approach the evidence for creation subject?
Well, you've already said I'm a geologist, and I do get asked to do a lot of debates against professors, and the majority of them would have this idea in their head that molecules that you can't see over millions of years turned into good-looking producers like yourself. It's called evolution. In between, you were a fish, a hairy ape-like creature, and now you've got bigger brains and less hair, and that's what's in their head. And one of the things I found very useful to do with them is, instead of saying, well, look, all the evidence shows creation, because they don't even know what the evidence is, basically. It's easy to prove with just a couple of questions, which I'm sure the listeners might find it handy to remember. And here's the first one. If creation was true, what would the evidence be? And most of them will get in a tiff and say, but look, all the biology books, all the courses, all the geology shows evolution is true. To which I reply, I didn't ask you that, sir. I want to know, if creation is true, what would the evidence be? And after about 5 minutes of really hammering that question till it sinks into their brain, they discover one thing. They've never asked that question in their life, which means they really don't know what the evidence means at all. They just assume. They've worn a set of glasses and they've seen the world through those evolutionary glasses. So my first job is to take those glasses off them and force them to answer that question. So I brought along something which I think you'll find interesting. Do you mind if I get it out?
No, but just what it is.
Well, it's not my pet snake today. It's one of these. You know what that is?
A boomerang, I guess.
Very good. You see, Australian is the world's international language. Everybody
Exactly.
knows a
Yes.
boomerang. And what's it famous for, Romulus?
I guess it turns back.
Okay, you throw it.
Yes.
I won't do it in the studio, of
Thank
course,
you very
because
much.
I'd break a few cameras. But you throw it and it circles round,
Yes.
and it goes once round behind your head, and when you get good at it, it lands in your hand. Takes a little practice. The first time you do it, of course, you throw it, and your father has to pay for the next door neighbour's window. But you finally get good enough at it, and the interesting thing is, this is a remarkable object lesson on that question I gave the professor. You see, I found it very useful in my debates just to leave one of these sitting on the podium. And of course, everybody, well, they're listening to me, but they're wondering why on earth is the boomerang there? And of course, we finally get round to pinning the professor to the wall, and in the meantime, his mind has automatically done the following about the boomerang. You see, his theory says the black people in Australia who use these boomerangs, who throw them, they go all the way around and they come back, those black people evolved from ape-like creatures in Africa over 3 million years ago. And yet nobody on this planet believes boomerangs happen by themselves. So basically, I challenge them and say, how do you know that? Because it really is, as I said, a great object lesson. Here's what's gone through their head, usually unconsciously. Somebody who they didn't see, somebody who they've never met, somebody who is not a part of this boomerang, somebody who exists separately from the boomerang, somebody who existed before the boomerang, and somebody who is smarter than this boomerang could ever hope to be, actually sat down and made it. Now, there you go. You better hold that and tell me how you'd know that that didn't happen by itself. You got any thoughts?
Well,
I mean, just look at the artwork for a start.
yeah, this is what I wanted to say. I guess there's no painting to happen by itself. So.
How do you know that? I mean, you're middle-aged. How do you know that paintings don't happen by themselves?
Well, I've seen paintings. They're usually signed, so someone did them, and I've seen paint.
Now, you almost sound embarrassed to say something that's so simple and so obvious, but you see, everybody knows that paint doesn't do paintings by itself. And so there's one evidence that somebody who's not part of the paint, who existed before the paint, put this together.
Exactly.
And your experience with that, even though you've got no experience with boomerangs, Would you like to suggest what this might be used for? Apart from playing with that.
Yeah, okay, as much as I know about it, for hunting.
For hunting.
For hunting.
Okay, now our viewers can keep that in mind, because here's the problem they need to think about. You see, it's famous for throwing, it goes all the way around and it comes back, but if it hits anything, like the next door neighbour's windows or the farmer's dog, it won't come back at all.
I never thought about it.
So therefore you have to use your brains to figure out what could you throw it at that you didn't hit but you caught. Now there's a good creative scientific question, and while they're pondering that, we'll get back to this. You see, a boomerang is made of wood, and the reason you conclude that this object was made, let's use another word for made, create. Now the professor is getting embarrassed, because you see, made and create are the same word. Designed is another word for the same thing. He knows that the Aboriginal took the wood from the tree and he shaped it into this boomerang.
Exactly.
And of course, the reason why most people can never make a boomerang, they get the shape right, but they miss these little bits, the nice little angles on the inside. See it there?
Yes.
And if you get those angles wrong, it simply won't work.
This is why it didn't work when we tried to make
when
it as
you
children.
tried to
Yes,
make it as
exactly.
children, it didn't work because you didn't have the right information.
Yeah, but we hunted one another with, but never came back.
So therefore you've got a boomerang, you've got the Aboriginal's brain, you've got a piece of wood, and here's another way in which the professor knows, even though he's never admitted to thinking about creation in his life. You see, the boomerang is a 100% returning object made out of wood, and the wood comes from a tree, and when you throw a tree it doesn't come back. So the fact is, here we have a 100% returning object made out of 100% non-returning wood.
Interesting.
Now, can you see a commercial proposition there? Money is also one of those things which is created basically out of nothing. You see, it's not the wood that makes this come back. It's the design. It's the shape.
I'm getting closer.
It wouldn't matter if you made it of wood or you made it of plastic or paper. It's the intelligence, the information. So therefore, when anybody walks into a room, they automatically know what the evidence is that this was created. Now I see you've got a Bible there. In order to put this into context, would you please read us Genesis chapter 1 verse 1?
Genesis chapter 1 verse 1. In the beginning God created the heaven and the earth.
Now I know you've had a bit of a science background, and you've also had quite a lengthy theological background.
Yes.
So therefore, since you also speak Romanian, and Romanian and Latin are related languages, what's the old two words that the theologians invented to describe the sort of creation in Genesis chapter 1 verse 1?
Yeah, creation ex nihilo.
Out of nothing. Okay, so therefore, we're not very good at that sort of creating.
Not exactly.
Not exactly. Okay, but if you read Genesis 1 verse 26, you discover that there's a second sort of creating in the Bible. And we're not too bad at this one.
Shall we read?
Yes, read please, verse 26.
Okay. And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. Okay,
now I know you know your Bible too, because we've talked before this program. Can you tell me what God did to make man? He just didn't speak like he did when he said, let there be light.
No.
So therefore there's that sort of creation which is back in the beginning, but what did he do to make man?